Classified Report Number 44-77PON. Access Level: Restricted Distribution. Operation Codename Feast of the Abyss. Date: September 12, 1944. Location: London. Headquarters of OSS, Office of Strategic Services. Author: Major Edgar L. Finch, Resident Analyst, Department of Psychological Operations. Introduction. This document presents a comprehensive investigation into an unprecedented incident that occurred on August 7, 1944, in the village of Pontaugier, Manche Department, occupied France. The event, codenamed Feast of the Abyss, resulted in the deaths of 197 German soldiers and officers from the 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich within approximately 55 minutes. What makes this event extraordinary is not only the scale of enemy losses achieved without direct combat, but also the identity of the sole individual responsible: Private First Class William F. Hargraves, a cook assigned to the 3rd Battalion, 377th Infantry Regiment, 95th Infantry Division, United States Army. Initially dismissed as absurd disinformation, subsequent radio intercepts, testimonies from surviving German soldiers, and air analysis confirmed not only the occurrence of the event, but its core truth: one American volunteer cook, using nothing but culinary skills and local resources, annihilated nearly an entire battalion of elite SS troops without firing a single shot. Below follows the chronology, methods, witness accounts, consequences, and recommendations regarding Operation Feast of the Abyss, along with suggestions for future use of such unconventional tactics in special operations. Biography: Private First Class William Franklin Hargraves, born May 12, 1911, Brooklyn, New York. William Franklin Hargraves was born in 1911 to a large family of Irish dock worker James and Sicilian homemaker Anna on Bedford Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. His father, tall and strong, bore scars from years of laboring at the piers. His mother, delicate with gray eyes, cooked meals that could defeat even the fiercest beast. Her lamb ragout, stewed in tomato sauce with capers, was legendary. And Billy, her eldest son, felt from childhood that his destiny lay in the pot. His childhood unfolded amidst the scents of onion skins, hot oil, and smoke from stoves. He learned from his mother, then from chefs in Manhattan restaurants. By age 20, he already worked at La Mer Rouge, a modest yet respected eatery on Greenwich Village, famed for its dishes based on Escothier's recipes and his own culinary inventions. He could turn humble turnip into the illusion of truffle, or canned tuna into a maritime fantasy. But everything changed on December 7th, 1941. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, Billy, like millions of Americans, felt rage. But in his case, that rage didn't manifest as a desire to pick up a rifle. It turned into a vow to feed the army properly. He knew frontline rations were a nightmare for anyone who understood taste. So, despite his age, he was 33, and chronic bronchitis, he volunteered for the Army in April 1943.
At first, they wanted to send him to the rear. Too fragile, flat feet, myopia 2.5. But when the recruitment center realized who he was, they assigned him to the 95th Infantry Division's Field Kitchen Unit. There, he quickly became a legend. Rumors said he could cook soup from fog and fry shadows. In Louisiana training exercises, his peach pie with rye flour was declared moral weaponry against despair. Preliminary history, Normandy, June-July 1944. The Allied invasion of Normandy on June 6, 1944, caught the 95th Division in the second echelon. Hargreaves arrived at Omaha Beach on June 15th, after the beachhead had been secured, but fighting continued. He saw destroyed villages, dead horses, children with hollow eyes. For the first time in his life, he felt his craft wasn't just entertainment, it was a weapon for survival. In St. Lo, during July's fierce battles over this strategic hub, his field kitchen was shattered by a direct hit from an 88mm shell. Instead of fleeing, Hargreaves gathered the fragments of his cauldron, lit a fire in the bin-to-fried crater, and began cooking oatmeal porridge, adding powdered dried mushrooms and a pinch of cayenne pepper. "A hungry soldier is a dead soldier," he'd say. Major Henderson, commander of the 3rd Battalion, later wrote, "Hargreaves saved more lives than our medical station. He fed us not with food, he fed us hope." Even he couldn't foresee what would happen in August. Pont-Auger, August 7, 1944. Early morning, the basement of Le Soin Doré. By early August 1944, the Allied advance in Normandy had reached a turning point. Operation Cobra had broken through German defenses, and General Patton's Third Army surged deeper into France. Yet desperate, the German command threw in their last reserves, including the elite 2nd SS Panzer Division, Das Reich, renowned for its brutality and combat readiness. One of the division's objectives was the small town of Pont-Auger, located 12 kilometers south of Avranches. A road ran through it, which the SS planned to use to strike at the flank of American forces. The town was tiny, just a few streets, a 15th-century church, and the Inn Le Swan Doré, the Golden Swan, built in 1890 and once famed for its cuisine. On August 7, 1944, at 5:30 a.m., the vanguard of the 3rd 177th Infantry Regiment took Pont-Auger without resistance. German units hadn't yet established positions. However, at 8:15 a.m., a radio intercept from the headquarters of the 2nd SS Panzer Division confirmed that Germans intended to seize the village by noon, using it as a base for artillery support and regrouping. The 3rd Battalion's command decided to evacuate main forces. The town was too vulnerable to hold. But before leaving, Hargreaves, inspecting Le Soin Doré, made a strange request. "Sir," he said to Major Henderson, "give me 2 hours and 1 medic. I'll serve the Germans a meal they'll regret until their dying day." Henderson, tired but used to the cook's quirks, simply nodded. "All right, Hargreaves, but if you're not in the woods in 2 hours, you'll be considered MIA." At 9:45 a.m., Hargreaves and Private Lewis Griffiths, a young medic from Ohio who volunteered just in case we need to bandage some Frenchmen, descended into the inn's basement. The basement of Le Soin Doré was enormous, about 80 square meters, 2.5 meters high. Stone walls, damp, smelling of mold and wine. In one corner stood an old winemaking oven, a massive stone structure with a flue leading into the basement of the adjacent building, once a bakery. Unused since 1939, it was still intact. Hargreaves carefully examined the space. His nearsighted eyes saw what others missed. Here, a trap could be set. "Lewis," he said, "we've got everything needed to turn this basement into hell."
He pointed to the cellar, where supplies hidden in 1940 were stored. 47 barrels of red wine, mostly 1936 to 1940 vintage. 12 sacks of dry yeast. 8 kilograms of baking soda. 20 kilograms of salt. 100 kilograms of potatoes and 30 kilograms of onions. 15 kilograms of dried porcini mushrooms, 5 kilograms of black pepper and spices. "These aren't just ingredients," he said. "These are tools of annihilation, preparation, science, and art." Hargreaves divided the basement into zones. In the center, 3 huge wooden vats, once used to store wine. Into each, he poured 150 liters of wine, added 2 kilograms of yeast, and 1 kilogram of baking soda. The mixture began bubbling almost immediately, releasing carbon dioxide. "CO2, he explained to Griffiths. "Heavier than air. It'll settle on the floor. First, it'll steal breath. Then, consciousness. In 40 minutes, death." In the corners, he placed pots of water, into which he threw onions, garlic, black pepper, dried mushrooms, and a pinch of mustard. Everything boiled, filling the room with thick, pungent steam. This way, they won't sense the gas. The smell of food will mask everything. They'll think it's dinner aroma. Then, he ordered Griffiths to bring wet sacks and water. Together, they sealed the doorframe with soaked sacks filled with sawdust, an old winemaking method for sealing barrels. "When they come in, I'll lock the door from inside. You run straight to the woods. I'll exit through the ventilation shaft in the bakery. And you? I'm a cook. I always leave last. A cook leaves when the guests have eaten." Dinner, the final act. At 12 p.m., the SS Vanguard entered Pont Auger. No resistance, only silence and the scent of something delicious. Captain Walter Croit, battalion commander, was furious. His men had gone 2 days on dry rations. When he heard the inviting aroma of onions and wine drifting from the basement of Les Sillons Dorés, he ordered, "Check who's there. If French, let him cook. If American, shoot him on sight." 2 soldiers descended into the basement. A minute later, they returned. "There's a cook, sir. He's making stew, and there's wine." Croit didn't believe them. But when he himself went down and saw a man in a worn chef's jacket standing by a pot with a ladle, he relaxed. "Who are you?" he asked in German. "Jean Dupont," Hargreaves replied flawlessly in French. He had studied the language in New York with an emigrant from Lyon. "I stayed behind to look after the place. Dinner's ready. The wine is local, 1938 vintage." The Germans believed him. Hunger overpowered suspicion. One by one, they descended into the basement. Total, 197 men, 185 soldiers, 10 non-commissioned officers, Captain Croit, and his aide. Hargreaves poured out the wine, actually a weak fermenting mixture, into mugs. "To victory!" someone shouted. "To home!" Hargreaves replied. He raised his mug, took a sip, and stepped out, pretending to fetch more. At the door, he turned back. The last thing he saw, faces lit by dim lamp, smiles, steam rising from pots, and the beginning of panic. He closed the door, slid the bolt, threw sacks over the crack. Inside, the nightmare began. First, coughing. Then, wheezing. Men fell to their knees, clutching their throats. Some tried to break the door, but it was too strong. The steam from pepper and onions burned their eyes. Carbon dioxide, invisible and odorless, displaced oxygen.
15 minutes later, silence. Hargreaves, exiting through the secret passage in the bakery, rejoined Griffiths in the forest. "Done," he said simply. Consequences and investigation. At 2 p.m. that same day, reconnaissance from the 3rd Battalion returned to Pont Auger. They expected an ambush. Instead, silence and a strange smell. When they descended into the basement, they found 197 bodies. All no signs of violence, weapons, or blood. Death came from asphyxiation. 5 survived, but fell into comas. Later, in captivity, 2 gave statements. Initial assumptions: poisoning. But analysis showed no toxins in food or wine, only high concentration of CO2 and ethanol in the air. When Hargraves was brought for interrogation by OSS Colonel Wilcox, the officer stared at him silently. "You killed 200 men without a weapon." "I fed them, sir," Hargraves replied. "The rest was hunger." The investigation confirmed his words. Only 2 survived, those who hadn't entered the basement and remained by the vehicles. Their later testimony: "We heard screaming inside, but the door wouldn't open. Then, silence." Technical analysis. Operation Feast of the Abyss represents a unique case of non-lethal yet lethal psychological warfare based on 1. Psychological vulnerability. Hunger as a primal need renders people blind to danger. 2. Physical chemical trap. Using natural fermentation reactions to create a deadly atmosphere. 3. Cultural manipulation. Germans raised on order and discipline never expected a kitchen to become a battlefield. Recommendations: develop a course in culinary tactics for deep recon agents. Include compact fermentation kits in OSS field packs. Prohibit mention of the method in public sources until 2000. Epilogue: Testimony of Lewis Griffiths, 1995. "I never thought I'd become a hero. I was a medic. I wasn't trained to kill. But Billy, he taught me that real war isn't just rifles. It's also kitchens. It's also smells. It's also silence." That day we hid in the woods. I heard screaming, at first joyful, then horrific. I saw Billy closing the door. He didn't say a word, just nodded at me, "Run." I ran. When we returned, there was silence, like someone had turned off the whole world. 197 bodies, all sitting as if waiting for dessert. I asked Billy, "Did you kill them?" He answered, "I just served them dinner. They chose what they wanted to eat." I didn't understand then. I understood only many years later. He didn't kill them. He gave them what they wanted, dinner. But the price was too high. For them, for us, for the world. I live in Ohio. I have 3 grandchildren. I don't tell them about Pont-Auger, but sometimes at night I smell onions and wine, and I know, somewhere in the world, someone's cooking again. Maybe for others. Maybe for me. Appendices. 1. Blueprint of Lycine Doré basement. Shows placement of vats, pots, flue, and exits. 2. Laboratory Report Number 4417B. Analyses of air, wine residue, and food remains. 3. Testimonies of German soldiers recorded at OSS headquarters August 10, 1944. 4. Recipe for Pont-Auger soup stored encrypted in CIA archives. Conclusion. Operation Feast of the Abyss proved that in total war, even the most peaceful professions can become weapons. The incident stands as a unique example of unconventional tactics based on knowledge, not brute force. We recommend keeping the methodology classified and considering its use in future special operations behind enemy lines, especially under resource-limited conditions. Signature. Major Edgar L. Finch, Office of Strategic Services, London, September 12, 1944. End of report.